Motion carries. Moving on, we'll move into our financial reports for December and January with Mr. Ray.
I'd be happy to go over December, but remember your statement of revenues and expenditures represents the activities over a period of time. So January does include December. So I'll start with January. Revenues are coming in as anticipated for the general purpose school fund. Expenditures, there's really not been any surprises. The fact that we do budget amendments in a more timely manner, we kind of cover all those things. But it's nice and boring. Same thing that was going on last year. It's about where we're at. Any questions on the general purpose school fund? Turning the page or scrolling down your screen, federal projects were $126,000 of expenditures over revenue. That's about a month and a half. We try to be right at 30 days to 60 days for collections, because federal projects, you spend the money and then you ask for reimbursement. So we're right in the sweet spot as far as timing our reimbursements. For cash flow purposes, we're fine. Any questions on federal projects? Cafeteria fund, and as of January 31st, we have a $71,000 surplus. I think I said last board meeting that I would like to have about $100,000 surplus this year. And I think we'll probably go beyond that. So everything's looking good with our revenues and expenditures with the cafeteria fund. The main reason that we're having such a good year is the USDA has said every kid eats for free, so our participation has increased greatly. The only downside to our participation has been some of our quarantines and things of that nature where kids aren't in school, but our numbers are still higher pre-COVID. So I hope that the USDA continues this and stops using free and reduced lunch applications and all the sources that you have to fill out and follow. It'd be much easier if they just block granted and said, this is what you get. They're moving towards that, so stay tuned. Any questions on any of our funds?
All right. Does anyone have any further questions or comments for Mr. Ray? All right. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve financial reports for December and January.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, Kim, could we have a roll call vote, please?
David Queenan,
Yes.
Lori Wilson,
Yes.
Jim Bubba,
Yes.
Merle Cross,
Yes.
Joey Smith,
Yes.
Ernest Isbell.
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to our internal school funds audit.
You should have, if you would like the bound copy of the internal school fund audit, I have one for you in my office. So feel free to ask for it. Most of the time, you end up giving it back to me anyway. So I figured rather than haul it over here, and it's also available online. But I've kind of just printed off the 3 pages that I feel are most relevant. The first page that you see there is your assets, liabilities, and your fund balance for all 3 schools. Long story short, we have $71,532 in fund balance for the internal school funds. I always say you can't spend fund balance, you can only spend cash, and that's exactly how much cash we have. There's no reconciling items between cash and fund balance. That's because we don't have any receivables or payables, no deferred revenues. So the next page goes over your revenue and expenditures. You can see that all 3 schools spent less money than they took in. And some years that'll just reverse. Some years, like the library fund, will spend more money than they take in. Well, they spent last year's money that they raised from the book fair. So I wouldn't be concerned with that particular number. I would realize that, you know, they want to have a fund balance to do things that support kids. And that's what they've been doing. Any questions on the first two pages? The bound statements can present a little more detail by school, if you'd like that, but one of the things the first thing I always look at, and I hound the principals, is your administrative cost or expense in your internal school funds should be the smallest expenditure, because this whole system is designed to spend money on kids. And for all three schools, that is the case, so I think we should applaud the principals and the staff for, you know, they're spending this money on kids, and that's what it's for. One of the interesting things we started, I think it was last year, was having an art and a music restricted fund, and they do some fundraisers. I think that's been very successful. The other thing that we do that a lot of schools don't do is we give, in addition to the BEP funds, every teacher gets $200 to spend for their classroom on kids. And that comes from a formula from the state of Tennessee. They only give us the $200 for the amount of teachers that are funded in the BEP formula, which of course is not how many teachers we have. But we fund every licensed teacher with the $200. New teachers get $400. And then we give an allocation based on some formula that Kelly has, and we fund those classrooms even more. So we do a really good job of giving the teachers the money that they need to take care of the little things, so to speak. So I think we do a good job
Yeah,
on
we
that.
basically give a per pupil instructional amount, and that goes to the schools for them just to use on anything instructional above and beyond what the teacher BEP would allocate. And then they also, we calculate all of the free and reduced lunch children, and then they get an additional $20 from central office for each one of those children, and that's to cover any field trips or anything for them to have access to the free and appropriate public education. And then a few years ago, when we were focusing on beefing up our special areas, the art and music and library, we now have a music and art certain amount of money that per kid, you get this amount of money extra just for your art and music, knowing that those cost a little bit extra. The music's, you know, the instruments are expensive, the art materials that they go through are so expensive. And then we put those in a restricted account to where they kind of manage their own account there. And we've done that now for 3 years, I believe. And it's been very successful, and the principals have done an excellent job making sure that the money goes where it is supposed to go and where the biggest need is. And then our libraries get $1,000 a year. We treat all of our libraries the same because you want them to have the same quality of books in each library. And so the libraries get an extra $1,000 from central office every year, in addition to their BEP, in addition to what they make off of book fairs.
We had so then the third page in your handout is, it's on me. These are our 2 written findings. I almost feel like if I don't disclose that to you, I'm hiding it, so I've got, or lying, I just let it out there. They were both on purchase orders. The first one was marking invoices as paid. So when they pay for an item and they're supposed to stamp that invoice as paid, that prevents duplicate payments. So it is a good idea. It's also a good idea to have somebody sign it, like the person who initiated the purchase order. So we're going to clean that up, and that's my fault for not stressing that. And then the second one was there were 2 purchase orders that were not authorized prior to the purchase. Things
If you've ever been a
happen.
teacher,
Yeah.
you know, Megan, we're glad you're with us. Megan Amos, 5th grade teacher at North Clinton Elementary School, is with us, so we're glad you're with us. But she can attest that sometimes you're just out at Walmart or you are at a place and you see something that you need for your classroom. And so it's hard then to, you know, go back to school on Monday, get a purchase order, get it authorized, and then go back and get it. It just, you know.
Who
If-
authorizes it when you go back to school?
principal?
The principal.
Okay,
The principal authorizes.
If it's over $100
over 100.
in aggregate for purchase, like on the weekend, or something, you're supposed to have prior authorization. So, and I get it, when I was a teacher, I kind of struggled with it. I was like, wait a minute.
I'm already
I
here.
saw this on sale, it was like $1 and the regular price is 10, and I bought a lot of it. And now you're telling me you're not gonna reimburse me? And so we reimburse, even if it results in a finding, cause that's ridiculous in my opinion.
If it's an allowable expense,
Yes,
which it
yeah.
is with our staff,
Yeah,
but.
yeah, we've never had a written finding for that. That's the internal school fund audit. The one thing that's different is, this year is or 2021 is the first year where the internal school fund numbers, that $71,000 in fund balance, is actually brought over to the city's financial statements. It's never been done. They consider that a special revenue fund. I know why they did it, not because of us. You have some school systems where their internal school funds are very wealthy. There's a lot of money there. So what they're wanting to do is pull that in and get some city oversight city or county oversight over that, because it can be millions and millions of dollars that sit in this fund that don't get wrapped up here. So that's why they're doing it. So I do agree with that, but that's the only thing that's changed on the internal school fund.
Okay. All right, any further questions or comments for Mr. Ray?
Can I just point out, Merle, that we did not get the 3-day audit finding this year?
That's amazing to me.
We are so proud we did not get the
I don't
3-day.
see
That is so hard.
I don't see how you did that, because the teacher does not have 30 minutes to say, y'all sit down and be quiet while I deposit this. And it came up just about every time I've ever.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
We'll take it. It may be back
Yeah.
on there next year, but we'll take it for this year.
All right.
I think it's a ridiculous amount of time. Considering you don't have anything else to do.
All right.
Little 6-year-old, 6-year-old.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the internal audit of our school funds.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our Board of Education audit. Is that not the same there?
Now, the internal school fund audit was what I
Okay.
just discussed, and then I
Right,
passed
now
out a
we
piece
got
of
board.
paper.
Okay, thank you.
The Board of Ed audit,
That's central office funds.
are we good? This audit, I tried to be brief. Callie said if it doesn't fit on one page, don't do it. Well, I used both sides of the page in really small font. So, I didn't?
No.
David Queener, do you have 2 sides? Oh, well, then it didn't do 2 sides. Wow. I
Took
believe.
care of me.
I did.
Danny probably heard you were planning on
Yes,
using
he said
color.
no.
He cut the copier
He
off.
didn't use color, Danny. That's the positive thing, but he didn't flip it over. We didn't get the back.
Darn, that's a copy machine.
He
All right,
tried.
you have the most valuable side, which is your assets and liabilities. I'm not gonna go over all my notes, you can read those. The big thing I want you to take from that is there's a line item in there called investments restricted. It's $89,926. That's a small number now. That represents the Stability Reserve Trust Fund for your it's part of TCRS. And they've marked that up to market. It's called marking it to market. That is the best thing the Department of Treasury has done in the state of Tennessee in a long, long time. And what that is doing is protecting Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System, which everybody that works in a school system participates in. Basically what they've done is they've tried to stabilize the big swings in a retirement account. When I say a retirement account, the billions of dollars that's held in the state of Tennessee. There's the hybrid plan has the Stability Reserve Trust, so they can charge a flat percentage to the school systems. And there's the actuary actually determines, it's called the actuarially determined contribution rate, and it's like 2%. We charge 4%, they charge us 4%. That extra 2% goes in this account. in a trust fund. And over time, that's supposed to build up, so they're not coming back and say, oh, next year it's 12%. So I mean, it's a small number now, but it's only I think it started in 2015. So it will grow, and I think that when you see anybody, a legislator, pat them on the back for getting that thing going. But the page that you don't have is our fund balance. Mr. Queener has it. So long story short, we have $5.8 million in fund balance, total fund balance. Part of that is restricted $100,000. That restricted portion is $89,000 that I just talked to you about in the Stability Reserve Trust Fund, and $10,130 for a scholarship fund that we have. So that gets you to your $100,000. And some of our prepaid items, that's a non-spendable fund balance. But 5.8 million is the number that everybody seems to want to talk about. Any questions on that? And
We will email out both sides of that
Sorry about that.
tomorrow so that you have access to the handout.
Except for Mr. Queener, he doesn't need that.
I got it.
If you want the hard copy, I can make that available to you. It's also on the city's website. You can download it on your computer. If you have questions about things, feel free to reach out to me. I usually make a lot of notes in mine, so I don't mind you asking questions.
Can you give them the other numbers? So the 5.8 million in fund balance includes the $1 million loan that we got for Clinton
Correct.
Elementary that we did not use. We will be using that in South Clinton. And then as far as our actual rollover from last year, Scott, give them that figure. Unless I'm putting you on the spot.
No, you're not. I've got it.
It was 200 and something thousand, wasn't it?
Well, no, our rollover was, hang on, sorry.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't
No,
have caught you
no,
off
you're
guard,
fine.
but I knew that might be
I
something
had
I'd be
it right
interested
here,
in.
But now I think it was 250 plus 4, so you're looking at $600,000. What had happened, when we did the financial statements, when I gave you a financial statement for June 30th, 2021, that included all the expenditures that it took to finish Clinton Elementary School's expansion, which reduced our carryover. When that gets wrapped up into the city's audit, that is not an expense to us. The actual, that's an expense to the city. The $1 million that we borrowed becomes revenue in the end. Over 2 years that we increased our fund balance by $1 million because of that loan. It's kind of a long story short. I don't recognize it on our financial statements that we use internally because we are paying the $1 million back. It's not really revenue. This year will be a little different because we're not borrowing any money for the South Clinton, so every expenditure that we make will reduce fund balance. It's kind of a, when you look at your assets and your liabilities, they don't recognize debt as a liability. It's revenue in the year that you receive it. It's not like a business. So it gets a little, I always say fund balance, like you cannot spend fund balance. You can only spend the amount of cash that you have. Now, we're real close, because if you look at your assets, the second line says investments. It's $1,010,131. That $1 million is the loan. That's sitting in cash. If we had not borrowed that money or received it, it wouldn't be sitting there. I think I may have just confused the issue a bit more, but I will email that out to you. Sorry, I apologize for not having that back page. I was so proud about just keeping it on one page also.
Good job.
Epic failure.
Danny still is giving you an A for effort. But I think that we need to be proud of the 5.8 million. We've done very, very well with Scott's guidance, and as he always says, count your pennies and the dollars will follow. So, we're proud of that fund balance, which is what has allowed us to do the expansion at Clinton Elementary and now, the one at South Clinton Elementary. So, thank you, Scott Ray, for
Yeah. You all as the team, so.
being fiscally conservative.
You said-
I don't compliment you much, so take it while you get it. We don't have to approve this particular audit because actually it is what it is, but we do want to recognize that we have received it, so that's what the motion is tonight.
I mean, any questions, I encourage you guys just to put on your, and flip through it. Please reach out. If it doesn't seem right to you, let's talk about it. Or if it doesn't make sense to you, let's talk about it. They're supposed to be produced in a manner that somebody without a degree in accounting can read and understand. They've epically failed in that endeavor. They make it more complicated every year. So, anyway, I'll be quiet now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ray. Any further questions or comments for Mr. Ray? Hearing none, we'll approve the Board of Education audit as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to new business. We've got, looks like 4 documents that we need to look into. The first one is the safe return to in-school, in-person instruction.
Yes, we put all of these under one action step, but as you know, whenever we receive federal funding, there is always an abundance of strings attached. And so with our ESSER funding that we have received, we've gotten, as you know, 3 different pots of money over the past 2 years. The ESSER 3.0, which is the most significant amount of money that we received, part of the requirements with this money is that we completed 4 documents as part of our application. And the 4 documents are there on the agenda. It was a safe return to in-person instruction, which was kind of odd for us to do because we were never not in person. We've done that. And then there was also a public plan where we actually have to relay to the public how we are spending ESSER 1, 2, and 3 and how much money in each pot of like teachers, tutoring, professional development, those types of different categories. There's also the needs assessment and the community engagement checklist. So all 4 of these documents were done back in July, August when we first received our ESSER 3 funding. But the first 2, the safe return to in-person instruction and our public plan, have to be updated every 6 months. And these have to be placed on our website. They also have to be placed in Spanish or at least one additional language on our website. So all 4 of these documents have lived on our website, but they need to just have board approval as part of the federal requirements.
All right. Any further questions or comments for Ms. Kelly for those? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the documents as presented.
So moved.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to US Able Life Insurance.
So this is just bringing it to your all's attention. Scott and I could not find in several years where you all have approved the latest contract. You know that the benefit has always been there, but we have a long history in Clinton City Schools of offering one of the most robust life insurance policies to all of our employees at no charge to the employee. We get that through US Able, but it is actually double your employee's salary up to $225,000. This has been a benefit that unfortunately over the time of Clinton City Schools, our families have benefited from. And so we certainly want to continue offering this for our employees. They actually just last year did another census, and they just updated the contract. Suzanne has worked great with them to make sure that all our employees are covered by this policy, free of charge to them. But just in an effort to be transparent, I just wanted to bring that so we actually had record of it on the board, that you all are aware that we are offering our employees double their salary life insurance as a free benefit to them.
All right, any further questions for Kelly? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve employee US Able Life Insurance.
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a
Second.
second? We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. That closes out new business. We'll move into reports and information.
So we'll start with principal reports, and Jenna, I think that we showed South Clinton the love last month, so we'll show you the love this month and let you come up first. As she's eating her mint.
First, I would like to congratulate Miss Denton. She was our Teacher of the Year, and Miss Denton had previously been a fifth grade teacher. And this year, we were so excited we were able to move her to an interventionist position. And she has gone way above and beyond expectations. She's great with the kids. The staff has been able to use her in a lot of different ways, so I wanted to congratulate her. And then I also wanted to congratulate Miss Kidwell on Principal of the Year. Definitely well-deserved. She's worked very, very hard, and we are doing some stuff with NIET, and she's found her niche, and she's definitely in her element. So, but she's been wonderful, so congratulations to her. Speaking of NIET, we had a visit from Keely Potter last week, and what we are trying to do is strengthen our feedback to teachers so that they can strengthen student ownership. So there were several walkthroughs, and we want to thank the teachers for letting us come in and do that. But in the morning, there were walkthroughs, and then there was some feedback on what Keely saw and what we saw and how we could help the teacher improve. And then in the afternoon, the time was spent developing a plan for our PLC meetings moving forward. And she definitely confirmed that we were on the right track, but she also told us to give ourselves grace to just slow down and make sure that we were rolling it out to where teachers knew what they were doing, so then it would transfer to students. A few important dates. On the 28th, we will have our monthly assembly, and on March 2nd, we will have read day. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Sharp.
you.
All right, Ms. Rail?
Can I ask Ms. Sharp, are you well now?
I'm getting there.
Good.
I'm just glad to be back at school. I couldn't sit home one more day.
Glad to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So I wanted to also recognize our Teacher of the Year at North Clinton Elementary School, Megan Flora. She is our third grade teacher, our only third grade teacher, and this is her third year with us at North Clinton, her third year teaching. She goes above and beyond every single day to do some really incredible things under some really extreme conditions on the given day. And we really appreciate her time, energy, efforts, and service. I also want to recognize that we have we just received word that Miss Amos, who happens to be with us tonight, has gotten a Education Foundation grant of $245 for Play-Doh and for tools to use for math fractional skills, modeling of scientific principles, and a bonus benefit to some fine motor skills to work with that Play-Doh. I also want to say thanks to Holiday Inn Express. I got so excited today.
It's a good day.
We have a donation of about 16 granite top tables and chairs, and then not the chairs are not granite topped. That sounds terrible. And we're going to have those in the library. We might have one or two outside the library, but they are going to be replaced so that we have tables and chairs for the little guys and tables and chairs for our bigger students as well. I wanted to mention that we had a 100-day of school celebration that is planned by our teachers Our teachers are almost like the students when they talk about planning for this, and we had students and teachers dress up like they were 100 years old. We had door decorating contests that were pretty ferocious with about 6 different categories. We even had our cafeteria staff, our office staff, our assistants, everybody. If we had a door in the building, it was decorated for 100 of something. And so it was pretty competitive, and we gave out prizes for the doors and for individual student projects that they brought in representing something related to 100. We also are at North Clinton working with Keely Potter, who is our NIET coach for Clinton City. And we are looking, in our goal of also student ownership, we're just taking a little bit of a different path. Our current focus is our student-to-student engagement using academic conversations with things like Accountable Talk. And Accountable Talk's been around a long time, but we're really kind of expanding that more into our academic conversations. We are seeing so many wonderful things. A lot of our walkthroughs consisted of conversations where students are giving feedback to one another on content and conventions in writing, analysis of literacy and informational texts, literary and informational texts, discussions comparing which math strategies were used to solve problems and the efficiency of those math strategies, third graders, working with a partner to explain who might be a strong leader in American history using opinion and fact statements to support their ideas from their text. Those would be second graders. First graders solving mathematical problems using number and symbol cards to prove accuracy of calculations and having the partner agree or disagree using the number of tens and ones to support their ideas and examples. And also in kindergarten, telling their partner what picture they drew that represented a word that started with Z, and that they knew the word started with Z because their airplane went zoom, 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 and Z says Z. So lots of wonderful academic conversations going on, students explaining their thinking and being able to share their ideas with one another and give feedback to one another.
Thank you, that is
Thank you.
fabulous. And while we have Miss Amos here, I want to do a shout out for her. She may kill me later for this, but we hired her away from Roane County, how many years ago, Megan? A lot years ago, and where she taught math in Roane County, and it was Roane County, wasn't it? And so we hired her as a math and science teacher at North Clinton Elementary, where she has done that forever. And then we approached her last spring and asked her to go out on a limb and become self-contained and to begin teaching ELA and social studies as well. And she graciously, I'm sure she probably didn't say some very nice words under her breath, but she smiled like she always does and says, "We'll do it." And she has embraced ELA and social studies this year. And I just want to tell you, the girl didn't think she could teach ELA, but the girl can flat out teach ELA. She has done an amazing job this year, and her mid-year benchmarks in ELA look beautiful. And so it's just a testament to the staff that we have that, you know, they don't put themselves in a box. They are willing to trust and to go and to take risks, and she did it, and she is just flourishing in 5th grade at North Clinton. So I just had to take that moment while you're here to brag on you, that we appreciate you trusting us and having faith that you could do it, because girlfriend, you are doing it, and you're rocking the socks off of it. So, all right, Miss Bonesteel.
So I just want to start out by saying congratulations to Erin Maples, formerly Erin Cooper, but she got married over the summer, so she's Maples now. She was our South Clinton Teacher of the Year. She teaches 4th grade, and this is her 5th year with us at South Clinton Elementary. And if you've ever been around her or been in her classroom, she is amazing at forming relationships with her kids and making all of her kids feel like she appreciates them as a person, not just as a student sitting in the seat. So she does a great job with that, but at the same time, she has high expectations for her kids, and she gets great growth and achievement. And she's always the first one to step up and participate. If I need somebody to do math tutoring, or we need help with summer school, or I need help setting up for Veterans Day, she's always willing to stay late and do what needs to be done to make sure that we show up for our kids. So I just want to say congratulations to her. We also had a visit with Keely Potter last week from NIET, and our focus that we're working on at South Clinton is success criteria, so making sure that kids can gauge their own mastery of the assignments and tasks that we're asking them to complete. And we really spent a lot of time pacing out what the big picture looks like. So what we want to accomplish by the end of this year, what we would like to accomplish next year, and kind of putting it into a plan so as not to overwhelm teachers and help them get a deep understanding. So as she had to remind me, because I like to get things done and I have a vision for where I want to go, but we have to go slow to go fast. So that's what we're doing, going slow to go fast. But we worked on pacing out PLCs through the end of this year and then kind of what it will look like next year. And we also did some learning walks, and she just had great things to say about all the teachers at South Clinton, and the relationships that they have with their kids were so evident, and the high expectations. So I want to say thank you to all the teachers that let us come in and visit in their classrooms. But she said you could tell that our kids in Clinton City are used to people coming in and walking through the classroom because it didn't throw them for a loop at all. They just went on as if it were normal. So our read day is scheduled for March 4th, and we're going to do that virtually again this year. So if anybody would like to read and record a video for us, let me know, and we'll add that to our virtual library that we're going to give teachers to present to their kids. And we have all kinds of fun things going on at South Clinton. Day-to-day basis, I couldn't even name them all, but today we had 5th graders eating bugs, so I'm going to tell you why. They are working on opinion writing, so they are writing a piece on whether or not it's more cost-effective and better for people to eat things other than beef, chicken, things like that, and they've done all their research. So Miss Sharp brought in some roasted mealworms, some crickets, and some different things that they were able to try, and they talked me into coming down and trying a
So
mealworm.
real bugs?
Real
Real
bugs?
bugs?
Real bugs, yes.
Put chocolate on and I'll come eat one.
Yeah. Well, that's the first thing I said when I came in and they asked me to eat one. I was like, where's the chocolate? I need to know. But there's probably a video that's going to surface at some point of my secretary and I trying a mealworm. So, but you know what? They were so excited, and they could tell me all the reasons that eating bugs is a great idea. So they're learning and they're having fun at the same time. So what more can you ask for?
They are much braver than me.
You do what you have to do for the kids, right?
That's an awesome story, awesome story. That concludes our principal reports.
All right, thank you very much. Next board meeting will be March the 10th. Legislative meeting is coming up. Actually, that's Monday, isn't it?
Monday.
And that will be held in Nashville. And moving on, we'll move into our director's report.
Okay, a couple of Clinton City Schools reports. First up on the list, the principals did a great job of recognizing our teacher and principal of the year. But Dana Denton, she is moving on as our system-wide teacher of the year, and she is moving on into the state competition. She let me know that she was going to be willing to take that route and to enter into the state competition. So we just cheer her on and are eager to see how that plays out. She's done an amazing job as the interventionist at Clinton Elementary School this year. Wanted to let you know that there will be a public announcement tomorrow from the State Department of Education regarding a special recognition that several districts across the state have received. Clinton City Schools is part of that group that is going to receive that recommendation or that recognition, but it is embargoed until tomorrow. So just check out for social media tomorrow, and we will be blasting it. You know how I love to brag on Clinton City Schools, and so we'll blast out that social media shout out tomorrow once the embargo has been lifted. Also, I sent you all an email, but just for those that happen to be watching on TV, wanted to let you know that the Tennessee Department of Education released information on how districts across the state performed on the Spring Tea and Ready as compared to the projected learning loss that they had predicted would happen. And I am pleased to report that Clinton City Schools was one of 7 districts across the state out of 146 districts that exceeded projected growth in all areas in the subject of math. And we were one of 9 districts across the state that exceeded expectations in all of our grade levels in reading. And so we are certainly proud That came with lots of blood, sweat, and tears from our staff members, from our parents, from our students, from school board, from central office to administrators, but we held tight and did what we knew was right. We needed kids in the building, and I think we are reaping the benefits, and we're not seeing the amounts of learning loss that other districts are seeing across the state. So super proud of that. Then to kind of give you an update on where we are with COVID, it is like the event that just won't go away. We keep thinking that normal is right around the corner, and then we see another spike and another variant. So I want to be equally transparent with you about where we are with COVID this year. As of last week, we have accumulated over 4,000 days of missed instruction from students due to quarantines and isolations just associated with COVID. So this doesn't include our days missed due to strep throat, stomach viruses, and everything else that hits kids. That is significantly more than where we were at this time last year. And then we've quarantined over 1,000 students since the beginning of the year. And so, yes, we have had some students that unfortunately were exposed twice and have gone out on quarantine more than one time. We do not have, as I've told you before, the legal authority to force teachers or students to quarantine. We can only recommend the Department of Health guidance. And so you are seeing districts all over the place handle this very, very differently. Some are just pretending that COVID doesn't exist. But I felt like that ethically, if there are Department of Health guidelines out there, that we owe it, if a child has been potentially exposed, to at least inform the parent that that has happened, and then we place that decision in the parent's hand as to if they choose to quarantine or if they want them to continue coming to school, and we equally respect both. I will tell you that we are seeing more parents take advantage of not quarantining, and they are continuing to send their kids to school, but we're also seeing a good number of parents that just due to outside family issues and personal circumstances, they want to quarantine their child and follow the protocol, and we respect and honor both of those. But just that number of quarantines and the number of absences that we have seen this year, we can't forget that COVID is still significantly impacting what we're doing inside the schools. I think that we've become a little bit more accustomed to the quarantines, and we've become a little bit more accustomed to the virtual teaching and in-person teaching. But just because we've become accustomed to it does not mean that it has made the work on our teachers any less stressful or any less work. They are busting it, and they are working hard to continue to provide instruction to students who are on quarantines and isolations. And they are tired. They are tired. And so I just want to always continue to recognize the wonderful work that they are doing. They are to be commended that we've been able to once again keep schools open, with the exception of 2 days when we closed. The numbers are looking better. Our student attendance is looking much, much better than where we were. Our staff attendance looks great. We've been tracking it for about 2 weeks now since we had to close for those 2 days, and we are in single digits every single day of the number of staff members that are out district-wide. So I think that we're going to see things continue to improve, but I also think we need to keep in context of the challenges that this school year has brought, and continue to just honor and pat our teachers and staff members on the back for what they've been able to accomplish. I did ask the principals to talk a little bit about Keely Potter coming in last week with our partnership with NIET, which is the National Institute for Excellence in Teaching. This partnership is about growing leadership to grow kids. And so when we do the walkthroughs, we are looking at everything through a student lens. We are not going in and watching educators. We're watching what the kids are doing. We want to see the kids actively involved and what they are doing and what they are learning, and how we can support enhancing the learning experience for children. She has been just a wealth of knowledge, and Leanne put it the best way. She said this has been the best professional development thing that she's ever participated in. So Keely and NIET is good stuff. If you recall, they're the organization that we used to plan our reopening plan back when COVID first hit. That served us so well. But wanted to brag that the work that Keely has been doing with our fabulous teachers and educators, she always says when she comes here, you all just don't realize, you don't know what you don't know, how special Clinton City Schools is. But she came in and actually created video footage that she's going to take to the National NIET Conference in Texas. So Clinton City Schools will be showcased at the National NIET Conference this year in Texas. And I believe that is happening, Leanne, is it March or April? March. In March. And then on to a brighter note, the General Assembly and education legislation. We are watching closely 3 different bills that will greatly impact what happens in Clinton City Schools moving forward. Just wanted to kind of keep these on your radar as I try to keep you updated. There is an AMO bill, and if you remember, AMO stands for Annual Measurable Objectives. So those are our performance goals that the state sets for us for achievement every year. And there was a great debate at the beginning of the year where the TDOE is saying that we need to use 2019 data to establish our new performance targets, which is pre-COVID. And we were arguing that we're still coming off of a pandemic, and if we were giving TN Ready in 2021, why would we not use the most recent data to set our next performance objectives like we have done every other year? So we have battled that greatly with TDOE. They are saying that it is going to take legislative change in order for that to happen. And so we actually have gotten someone to carry that bill for us that would allow us to use the most recent TN Ready data to set our performance goals. And I think it is important that we do that. Just looking at our 4,000 days of missed instruction and our 1,000 quarantines that we've done, education is still impacted. Learning is still impacted this year. So to base our progress and our success on pre-pandemic data is not setting up schools for success across the state. So we're continuing to look how that plays out. And then the 3rd grade retention bill that was passed as part of the extraordinary session last January is saying that we are only at this point allowed to look at TN Ready data. And so every student in the 3rd grade that would score in the approaching category or the below basic category would be subject to retention. Let me put this into perspective for you. That would be 60% of Clinton City School 3rd graders that this law would be saying we need to be having retention conversations with. And where the rubber meets the road is TN Ready is not an on-grade level assessment. It is a standards assessment. We have many children in that approaching category that are performing on grade level. And so they're trying to make a TN Ready test match. It doesn't match what they want. You're comparing apples and oranges. And so we are trying to introduce legislation because every good practice, we preach this in Clinton City Schools, you don't ever make a determination on one piece of data on an 8-year-old that is given in one point in time. That's ludicrous, especially when you look at the retention research that shows that retention is not an effective intervention. And so we are requesting that they allow us to look at multiple sources of data, including our universal screener, including our benchmark assessments that we give, and let's create a portfolio of this child before we make a detrimental decision regarding this child. I will tell you right now that TDOE is against that happening. We were clearly told that today. So more to come on that. And just to kind of let you know, this law mimics Texas law, which is where our Commissioner of Education has come from. So that's just a little bit of history with this law. And then finally, school funding. We know that school funding is going to be a big piece. Governor Lee and Penny Schwinn held a press conference on that today. Some more information is coming out regarding specific weights. But we're just kind of holding on to see what's going to unfold there and then how that's going to impact Clinton City Schools. But then you probably have heard his $1 billion pledge to education, so I just provided for you here a breakdown of how that's going to play out for the next 2 years. For this upcoming year, because if a new school funding goes into place, it won't go into place until fiscal year 24. So next year we will function off of the BEP, and then it would be the following year that the school funding. So for this next year, the $1 billion breakout for public ed is only $125 million in teacher raises, which is the same amount that he gave last year. So Kelly's soapbox here, we were given the opportunity with this $1 billion of funding to truly make an impact towards teacher salaries. Unfortunately, he chose not to do that. $125 million in growth and insurance funding in BEP, but then he is going to give $500 million in grants for middle schools and high schools with a focus, it's called Innovative Schools, but it is for schools to place a focus on CTE education. He's gonna do $200 million for, then he's gonna do $200 million to rebuild schools in flood zones, and then $50 million in additional grants. But then in FY '24, if this school funding formula goes through, that whole $1 billion is gonna be placed into the school funding. And so we're gonna wait and see kind of how that plays out. However, he has been very, very clear that if the General Assembly doesn't pass a new funding formula, that $1 billion will not go to education. And so we kind of push back and say, regardless of what funding formula we're using, whether it's BEP or this new school funding, if you want the money to impact children, it shouldn't be tied to something getting passed. So we'll see how that plays out. But those are some of the just fun, happy, warm, fuzzy feeling things that are happening in Nashville with regards to education. So we will, hopefully, Joey and Scott Ray and I are going to TSBA, so we will learn more next week about kind of what's happening with those, and I'll be sure to keep you updated. But other than that, we're working hard. We're getting ready to end the third 9 weeks of school, so school's flying by. Any questions for me?
I have a compliment for our staff. A couple weeks ago, we had the fundraiser for ET. And I was really proud of the teachers that were there, that were helping serve and do everything. I'm just a small part of the school system, but it just touched my heart. Because ET is such a good friend of mine, and he's a good guy. And I was just so proud to see those teachers there. That says a lot for them to come in on Saturday morning early and do what they were doing. I am so proud of them. So
ET's part of us.
he's a
In
good
fact,
guy.
I'll tell a funny story at North Clinton. There's a little girl at North Clinton. Of course, North Clinton, they probably know ET most at North Clinton because that's where his office is. But they call him Coach. And so the teacher was teaching in the classroom, and they were talking about leaders in the community. And so she asked them who the President of the United States was, and the girl responded, E.T. So when he is able to come back to us, he is going to have E.T.'s Oval Office. We're going to rename his office the Oval Office. But the community outpouring support for him has been tremendous, and he has been such a blessing to Clinton City Schools. I know he's been a blessing to parents and the kids who have been impacted by the Blaze program, but it extends beyond Clinton City Schools. I mean, it extends to community members. He does equally as much for Anderson County Schools. I mean, his heart is definitely.
And a huge crowd that Saturday too.
Oh,
My gosh.
I'm not gonna lie, I did smack talk him a little bit, and I told Rita, I said, you go tell him that the pancake breakfast that I organized beat and made more proceeds than any pancake breakfast that you did. Let's not mention that it was for him, but.
I was proud of the teachers that were there. It was really spoke big time for me.
We love our ET.
All right. Anyone else? Any other questions or comments? All right. Hearing none, I'll declare this meeting adjourned.